attacked by missiles on June 12th, retaliated on June 13th. When bombs fly, headlines talk nukes, ideology, or retaliation. But the real reason? Money, and Iran's untapped economic power. They're fighting in the skies above Tehran and Jerusalem. But this isn't just a war of drones and deterrence. It's a battle for Iran's economic future, and who gets to control it. Welcome to 360 Economy, where we go beyond the missiles to uncover what really drives global power. Today, we'll reveal why Iran isn't just a military target. It's an economic prize that could shift global markets, undermine U.S. leverage, and reshape alliances. Let's break down the 6 reasons Iran matters now more than ever. Iran holds the 4th largest oil reserves in the world, roughly 157 billion barrels. It also sits on 34 trillion cubic meters of natural gas, the 2nd largest reserve globally. The South Pars gas field, shared with Qatar, which holds an estimated 1,800 billion cubic feet of gas. That's nearly 40% of Iran's total reserves. Even under sanctions, Iran produced over 3 million barrels of oil per day in 2023. If fully reintegrated into global markets, it could push beyond 4 million barrels per day, enough to shake energy prices from Beijing to Brussels. Iran's hydrocarbons aren't just fuel. They're leverage against the West, OPEC rivals, and even its own isolation. At face value, Iran's economy looks modest. Its nominal GDP in 2025 is around $464 billion, behind countries like Poland or Thailand. But beneath the sanctions lies a sleeping giant. A McKinsey Global Institute report projects that, with lifted sanctions and modest reforms, Iran could add $1 trillion in GDP by 2035. That's more than doubling in just a decade. To achieve that, Iran would need to grow at 6.3% annually, entirely plausible for a post-sanctions recovery. It could create up to 9 million new jobs and raise GDP per capita from $5,700 to over $12,000, putting it near the level of Spain. And here's the real kicker. Most of this potential sits untouched. Iran is already industrialized, educated, and digitally connected, but held back by geopolitics. Unblock that, and Iran doesn't just recover, it surges. But that future remains theoretical, because sanctions still choke Iran's economy. At its lowest point in 2025, GDP dipped to $341 billion as the currency collapsed and inflation spiraled. Official inflation hovers around 44%, but independent estimates put it closer to 70%. The Iranian rial continues to plummet, forcing the cost of imports, even food and medicine, out of reach for ordinary families. And despite its energy wealth, blackouts and fuel shortages are common. Why? Because subsidies, mostly on fossil fuel products, eat up 27% of GDP, around $163 billion annually. Iran's middle class, once its engine of growth, is now being suffocated. Sanctions aren't just pressuring elites, they're distorting the entire economy, from currency valuation to infrastructure investment. And that distortion is creating long-term volatility the West can't easily predict or control. Still, Iran has proven something dangerous. You can't sanction a country forever. From 2021 to 2024, Iran's GDP nearly doubled, not because of reform, but because of relaxed U.S. enforcement under the Biden administration. Oil exports rose from under 800,000 barrels per day during Trump's maximum pressure to 1.6 million barrels per day by early 2024. Analysts say Iran could easily push another 500,000 barrels per day with minimal diplomacy. That kind of output reshapes global energy dynamics. It pressures Saudi Arabia, undercuts Russian barrels, and gives China, Iran's biggest buyer, massive negotiating power. And Iran knows it. It doesn't just want back into the system. It wants to re-enter on its own terms. As a power player, not a beggar, Iran isn't just sitting on reserves, it's weaponizing geography. The Strait of Hormuz, a narrow 21-mile choke point, sees 20% of global oil pass through it daily. Control of Hormuz equals leverage over energy prices, over U.S. naval positioning, and over Gulf states. But Iran's ambitions go far beyond geography. In 2024, it joined BRICS+, aligning more deeply with China, Russia, and other de-dollarization advocates. Among the latest deals, $4 billion in Russian investment into Iranian oil fields, 55 billion cubic meters of gas exports annually, including pipelines to Pakistan and Iraq, and expanded banking cooperation with China, bypassing SWIFT entirely. Iran is using its economy not just to survive, but to fund proxies. influence neighbors, and challenge the Western financial order. The battlefield isn't just the Strait, it's global capital flows. The June 12th to 13th missile exchange wasn't just a military skirmish. It was a signal that Iran is getting too close to unlocking its full potential. And that potential isn't ideological, it's economic. A fully reintegrated Iran could redraw Middle East alliances, create a land-based China to Europe trade route, bypassing US-controlled seas, lower global energy costs while threatening OPEC unity. If Iran shows it can grow outside US systems, others, from Venezuela to Russia to parts of Africa, will follow. And that's what this is really about. Not missiles, not religion, but economic independence and the threat it poses to a world built around US control. For decades, Iran has been boxed in by bombs and embargoes, but its real battleground isn't nuclear, it's economic. The West fears a nuclear Iran, but it also fears a prosperous, sovereign Iran, one that trades freely, builds alliances, and escapes the dollar. And if that happens, the world map doesn't just change, the rules of the game change. If you found this helpful, subscribe to 360 Economy, because tomorrow's wars may be fought with missiles, but they'll be decided by markets. This isn't just about Iran, it's a preview of how global power is shifting in real time.